Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you. Start of this school year. I now convene the September 2018 meeting of the Executive Committee. Will the recording secretary please call the roll? I'll remind you the Executive Committee members are the chairs of our different committees.
Linda Darling-Hammond.
Present.
Alicia Hine. Kirsten Barnes. C. Michael Cooney.
Here.
Jose Gonzalez.
Present.
Bonnie Clapp. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have an action item before us today. Agenda item 1A is a happy item. It is the appointment of the Educator Preparation Student Liaison, and the item is being presented by Rhonda Brown. Ms. Brown, please begin.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Hello. Good morning.
The Commission's policy manual allows the Executive Committee to appoint an Educator Preparation Student Liaison to serve on the Commission. The requirements to apply for the position include submission of an application form, verification of current enrollment in a preparation program, and an essay responding to a prompt that is included on the application. An announcement for the liaison position was sent by email to deans and directors of educator preparation programs over several weeks, actually months, and the information was also posted on the Commission's website. Staff worked with Commissioners Brown, Kung, and Martinez to review applications and select candidates for interviews. 7 applications were received, and the panel selected 4 finalists for interviews, which were held via conference call on September 25th. The applications for the finalists are provided in the agenda insert for this item if you're interested in looking at those. If there are no questions, I will turn it over to the panel to provide additional information on the interviews and to give their recommendation to the Executive Committee. Commissioner Kung, would you like to begin? Thank you.
Okay, so on Monday, Commissioners Martinez, Brown, and I interviewed 4 candidates: James DeLeo, Anaka Johnson, Aya Shub, sorry if I'm pronouncing the names wrong, and Shannon Sheehan. And let me first say that we felt that all 4 of them would have been very good possible candidates for being the future student liaison, but we had to decide on one person at the end. The backgrounds of these 4 individuals range from special ed to math, science, and PPS credential candidates. And we all independently decided that and came to a consensus, because we all had the same first choice of Aya, S-H-H-U-B, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, Shub, maybe. And I thought she answered our questions very clearly. She expressed that she's a special ed teacher candidate, and that she's thoughtful, very eloquent, and spoke clearly to and answered questions about how she would be a voice for special education candidate teachers, as well as for all teachers. So if any of the other commissioners want to speak.
I think one of my favorite questions and answers was when we asked her what was her ideal, school and learning environment. She talked very much about being around teachers where she can collaborate and share with and learn from. And she also talked about her previous experience working with groups and her ability to integrate diverse opinions and different ideas and to either contribute or to be swayed or to stick with what she thought. But she talked very eloquently about her ability to collaborate and to integrate multiple perspectives, which I think was so important for the commission. So it was very reassuring to be able to interview 4 great candidates, and very exciting to watch this candidate rise to the top with the kind of answers that she provided in a very broad way, and then could also talk about the day-to-day work as well.
In addition, one of the things that we found that we really liked listening to her talk about some of the challenges in educator preparation and the obstacles to becoming a teacher. And because she works in special education and also has experience in general ed, she was very articulate about bridging those two pieces, which is something that the commission is interested in and the field is interested in, and we've been doing a lot of work about. So I also want to thank you. She'll never be able to take your place, but she'll be a great student liaison.
Item. And all are welcome to express them. All right, seeing none. Do I have a motion to appoint Aya Shub, am I saying it correctly, to the Educator Preparation Student Liaison position? Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Cooney. Do I have a second? Commissioner Gonzalez. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to our new student liaison. I also want to thank the committee for their time and energy in making this selection. And I want to thank Autumn Sanwald for her service to the commission and her voice this year, which has been very, very helpful to us. Wish you the best in your future endeavors. Do you want to say a word about what that is and what you're doing? Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually just started at a high school, Montgomery High School in San Diego, California, as a 9th grade English teacher. So English co-teach and fundamentals. And it's great to be able to work with an experienced teacher and then also have my own classroom as well. So we started in July.
Wow.
It's a year-round school. I'm on fall break right now for 2 weeks, and it's nice to have a little recharge. Do some planning, and we're going to get back to it first couple days of October. So I'm really enjoying it, and I've learned so much here also.
Well, we wish you all the best. We'll miss you, but we'll think of you in your innovative school on a year-round schedule, co-teaching. That sounds wonderful.
It's
what
great.
A good way to come into the profession. Yeah. This concludes the business of the Executive Committee, and the committee is adjourned. I now convene the September 27, 2018 meeting of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And will the recording secretary please call the roll?
Kathleen Allaby, Kirsten Barnes, Kathleen Williams Brown, C. Michael Cooney, Linda Darling Hammond,
Present.
Marisol Escobedo, Jose Gonzalez, Makita Gwino Shire, Johanna Howick, Alicia Hine, Bonnie Klatt, Kevin Quinn, Jane Marks, Monica Martinez, Castle Redmond, Ade Rodriguez, Tina Sloan, Tom Tolleson, Andrew Wall. We have a quorum.
And Commissioner Klatt, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Two people to welcome to this meeting. I'd like to welcome State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, to the commission table. We appreciate Michelle Zumat's contributions to our work as your designee to the commission, and it's nice to have you here in person today. And we'll come back around to hear some words from you about the state of the state. I'd like to introduce Kathy Allaby also to the commission. Kathy is our new school board member representative, who has a long history with Riverside Unified School District. Her grandmother attended Riverside's all-girls high school back in the day. Her father was class president at Old Poly. She attended Emerson, Alcott, Victoria, and Harrison elementary schools. That's a lot of elementary schools. Chippewa Middle School and Poly High School. After graduation, she attended USC, graduating with a degree in journalism and public relations. As a longtime volunteer, Kathy chaired the City of Riverside's Youth Action Plan, sat on the RUSD Measure B Citizens Oversight Committee. She served on over 25 community nonprofit boards, president of the Junior League, the National Charity League, the Riverside Arts Foundation, and PTA president at 3 schools. And in her spare time, She was awarded the 2004 WCA Women of Achievement Award, 2005 Family Services Family of the Year for Volunteerism, the Junior League, Silver Rain Cross. She's been Volunteer of the Year at Amelia Earhart Middle School twice and John North High School. She was honored by the City of Riverside with the Spirit Award for Outstanding Volunteerism in September 2011 and an Outstanding Leader of Riverside by the Rain Cross Group. We're delighted to give you the opportunity to fill up your excess hours with service to the commission. Kathy is a big believer in the fine arts and supports music, art, and theater in the community and in schools. She developed arts fundraisers like the Ghost Walk Riverside, the Giant Orange Project, and Art Float Riverside, to name just a few. She loves Riverside history, supports the Mission Inn Foundation, the Fox Theater Foundation, the Evergreen Memorial Historic Cemetery. Again, welcome, Commissioner Alvey. If you have any questions about Riverside whatsoever, I refer you to Kathy, and we look forward to your valuable input and contributions to the work of the commission. Thank you. Pleasure to have you. Item 2A is the approval of the August 2018 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the August 2018 commission minutes? Thank you. Commissioner Martinez, do I have a second? Commissioner Kung, is there any discussion of the minutes? Yes, Commissioner Klatt.
I'll be abstaining just because I missed some of the items.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be abstaining. I was not.
Okay, Commissioner Barnes, Commissioner Gonzalez, okay, and
people who put them down initially, but all those who review them. You know, it's
well, let's take a moment to
read.
thank our staff who are responsible for our minutes. As we thank them for the high quality of their work on all of our items, we are so fortunate. Thank you, Commissioner Cooney. Any other discussion of the minutes? All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. All those opposed? And the abstentions. All right, and we have 3 abstentions. The motion carries. Next item is 2B, approval of the September 2018 agenda. We have agenda inserts for items 1A and 2C. Do I have a motion to approve? Did somebody say something that I missed? Okay. To approve the September 2018 agenda. Motion? Thank you, Commissioner Rodriguez. And then do I have a second? Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And all those opposed? All right. The motion carries. Agenda item 2C is approval of the September 2018 consent calendar. This is always fun. Do commissioners have any items they would like to consider in closed session? Commissioner Barnes?
Number 5, Timothy Bennett.
All right. Any others? Commissioner Kung?
Number 69, Deanna Quintano.
Any others? Commissioner Cooney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number 22, Damian DeLuccio.
Okay. And that seems like all that we have. So now do I have a motion to approve all the remaining items on the consent calendar? Thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez, do I have a second? Commissioner Klatt, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. So this is another full agenda of the commission, and I know we think at these meetings, and many of us worry in between the meetings about how we're creating a context for high quality teaching and learning for all of our teachers and students in the state, what the nature of the education is. We've had new Common Core standards. We've had new standards for teaching, for school administration. And I thought of that as I was, like many of you, tearing myself away from the hearings this morning on the television. I know we're all wondering and worrying. One of our California colleagues is testifying this morning in regard to the nomination of Judge Kavanaugh. And I reflected on how important it is for us as we are thinking about the nature of education in this state to have a bead on a strong ethical education for all young people and a strong ethical standard for the way in which we raise our children, their social emotional development, their capacity for empathy and for engagement with others in a productive and respectful way. And it left me resolved. I know we've done a lot in our standards to really integrate those kinds of qualities of the whole child and of the kind of educational aspiration that we have in our standards for teachers and for administrators and in our conception of the kind of learning and development we want for our citizens in our state. And I want to renew my commitment, and I know all of you hold a commitment to that gold standard and North Star for our work as we think about the state of our nation today. I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners, members of our larger community. It's great to be with you here at the end of summer, beginning of fall. Thrilled to welcome Superintendent Torlakson and our new member Kathleen Olivey to the table. We're about to outgrow the table, and what a good thing that will be to have all of this good thinking, deliberating on the work. So we're off to a vigorous start here with the new year here at the Commission, and the staff is working as extraordinarily hard as they usually do. But we have new work that we're doing around the grants that are made available in the state. As you may recall, the Commission was given authority to expend $125 million in grant funds to support the recruitment and development of new teachers. $100 million of that focused on special education teachers, $25 million focused on STEM and bilingual teachers. So we currently have, I think, 3 requests for proposals that have been released into the field. One of them is for building capacity to deliver residency programs, and that grant RFP just closed, and so we have some grant applications in that are about to be reviewed and hopefully announced fairly soon. We have a second RFP out to support the expansion of existing residency programs, and that will close in a few weeks. And then the third residency RFP will go out in October, and that will be for new programs to develop in residencies, new LEAs to develop residency programs. So this is a very exciting time for us to enter into that work of residency development and building capacity in the state to deliver on and develop these kinds of pathways into the teaching workforce. The other grant RFP that's out right now is the Local Solutions Grant Program, and that is designed to support local education agencies in a range of innovative strategies to recruit new special education teachers. So it's a great time for us to be launching that work and working with the field to build its capacity. A few years ago, you may recall, the Commission received funding to releasing grants to develop new undergraduate integrated programs that would allow teachers in training to complete a 4-year degree and credential program within 4 years or 4.5 years in special education. And it's fantastic news. We have many of those programs are beginning their enrollments this fall. We have 46 new undergraduate integrated programs that have been approved and are beginning enrollment, most of them this fall, and some of them are waiting until next fall. We had a number also, about 45 existing programs at the undergraduate level that took this opportunity to retool and to get focused on and how to tighten up their program and make it available to undergraduates. 13 of these programs are single subject math focused, 14 are single subject science focused. 17 of them are focused on the mild to moderate credential for education specialists. And let's see, 10 of them were focused on the moderate severe, building moderate severe special education programs. 12 are multiple subject with a bilingual focus. 4 of them are focused just specifically on bilingual and adding it to the other credentials that they offer. So 19 of them took the opportunity to strengthen their multiple subject pathway for undergraduate candidates who'd like to do this work. So that also is a very exciting opportunity to bring preparation into a tightly constructed, really, preparation pathway, but to allow undergraduates to very efficiently complete their preparation and get into teaching sooner rather than later. And so this is a good time for us in the work we're able to initiate and offer the state and support within the state to grow our teaching population. So that concludes my report.
Yay. And I'd like to, at this point, ask Tom Trowickson, we're delighted that you're here, to give some comments about his reflections on where we are in the state. We've had the pleasure of working very closely together over a number of years, the CTC and the Department of Education. It's been a good era of collaboration and a lot of forward progress. And Tom, we're delighted you're here. Please.
Delighted to be here. And it's another great day in California, right? You're here with a mission and passion and skills to help our students reach their dreams and their full potential. And so I really appreciate it. And I thought from time to time, I think I'm busy, but then I got the resume from Kathy over here, and I think, how do we match that? But I think you exemplify the dedication, the sense of service, the sense of purpose to help our students succeed. And that's why you are such an effective commission. You share your great depth of experience and your passion to make a difference. And you are making a really positive difference. So I'm here today. I mainly came to say thank you for what you have been doing. It's extraordinary, the progress we've made. Linda said I should go down memory lane a little bit to where we've been in the past. But I wanted to just, again, thank you, Linda, for your incredible leadership, your vision, your advice is so appreciated, and your tenacity is appreciated. Is she tenacious or what? So she gets an idea and she just keeps going, and we needed that energy and that leadership, and you've provided it. And I want to thank also Mary, Sandy, we've worked very closely on so many issues, and the progress report she just gave on the legislature and the governor agreeing to fund the residency program and some of the other needs for special education for special subject areas is fantastic what's taken place. And so thank you for your leadership. And I have to thank so much with the schedule I do have. Don't have as many meetings as Kathy, but I haven't been able to make, you'll be the new standard, sure. But I wanted to thank Michelle Zumont for standing in for me, for doing a wonderful job reporting back to me of your progress and deliberations. And so if we could have Michelle Zumont stand up and be recognized, thank you. And Barbara Murchison is here, part of our team at CDE that helps prepare these agendas and get ready for the policy discussion. So Barbara, just stand and wave as well. So yes, it was a few years ago, like 8 years ago, that it was a tumultuous time. There was chaos. 30,000 teachers have been laid off. We were looking at 25,000 classified, including teacher aides, classroom aides. It was chaotic. We weren't sure where it was headed because the recession was deep and terrible, and education got hit. And in the midst of all that, there was the blame game. Teachers were to blame, bad teachers, and all this debate that we had to also resist. We also had to reject the race to the top mentality, and that 1 or 2 test scores on 1 or 2 days somehow defines student and school success. We know it's a lot more complicated, and we focus on reaching and teaching the whole child, and we went from that emergency. I declared a state of fiscal emergency for schools in the first week I took office, and it riveted the public attention to what was happening in the classrooms, and also for teachers and administrators to open up their classrooms so the public could come in and see the excellent work that was going on and how inspiring our teachers are. So that laid the groundwork for a transition team, which Linda Darling Hammond co-chaired with David Rattray, who's the vice president of the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce. So we early on connected to the business community. So when it came time to battles over Common Core, we didn't have a battle in the state. It wasn't a political football. We had general consensus, and not all parent groups supported it, but enough did, and teachers embraced it, administrators embraced it, and the Common Core became. And the legislature invested in it. $1.4 billion was work that we did with Susan Bonilla at the time to get money for the implementation of the Common Core, the technology, the computers, the professional development. And teachers across the state, when I visited their classrooms, when I visited their lunchrooms and talked, they were eager for the professional development. And they still are. They're thirsty for improving their craft, improving their professional impact on our students. So we created something called the Blueprint for Great Schools. It was landmark work in terms of really laying out goals and objectives that we wanted to achieve. I have a couple of copies I'll pass down if you hadn't seen it before, but Linda's prominently featured in here, and her ideas were embodied in this final report. We had 50 education experts around the state help hammer out a consensus plan of moving forward. Again, emphasizing the whole child, and again, building up the ranks of California teachers with resources and respect, and you've made a tremendous positive difference. The scapegoating and the blaming of teachers, I think, is receded, not gone forever, but the work you're doing here to improve teacher quality, administrators' quality, their professional impact, their leadership in the community and their school team is just very important and working well. This work, and I'll pass around a couple so some of you may not have seen it, but there it is. This work in the Blueprint for Great Schools led to something that was, we worked very closely with Mary Sandy on this, and you were a champion with Linda and several others. Greatness by Design, Supporting Outstanding Teaching to Sustain a Golden State. And this became a springboard for a lot of actions, including right up to going to the legislature to ask for more money for more professional development. And again, the $1.4 billion included a large portion of funds for that investment. So the Greatness by Design identified some critical priorities, including creating a continuum of learning expectations and opportunities for educators, developing a collaborative system, a learning system that's collaborative, and developing a consistent revenue base. With these guiding principles, together with teamwork, and you represent that teamwork, all the organizations you're here representing are the California Dream Team for our kids' education. We have partnered to accomplish a great many of the recommendations in those reports that we put forward. And we've had not only success, I think, good success in implementing the Common Core. We've had the revolutionary, historic LCFF and the new accountability system with the LCAPs and engaging the county offices and a more important and pointed role to look at the quality of education going on in the schools and the school districts within their counties. We have the CCEE that grew out of meetings with Michael Fullen, visiting University of Toronto, and looking at how do we get the bureaucracy in my department, the bureaucracy in the state to really connect to the classrooms and the communities. And we worked out some good systems for doing that, and the CCE is a result of that. It's we're here to help. It's not here to just slap your wrist or say you did wrong and you're not in compliance. It's to be a helping hand, and the CCE has invested in a number of pilot projects, I'm sure you're aware, which are learning communities and other pilot projects helping define how to best move forward. So we've also had this system of support that is taking agencies out of their silos, taking and building bridges so that we have interagency teams that are helping schools that are self-identified as needing help, and now with the dashboard and the new multiple measures, as we see in the county superintendent's review, the LCAPs, and as we see the work, we have resources to apply, true helping hands to come and provide facilitation, financial resources, and other things like that. I'm so glad we moved away. Are you pretty glad we've moved away from the single point of test scores being the defining measure of school success? One item in particular exemplifies the outstanding partnership is the update on the development of the California Administrative Performance Assessment. I know we're going to look at that later today, so thanks for the good work on that in advance. Another item is the update on creating a working group to explore solutions surrounding career technical education issues, which I think is very important. That's one of the things I've fought to bring back, and the legislature's put a couple $1 billion into career technical education. Of course, one of our big challenges is finding those with the skills who come from the real world and have excellent skills from their professional careers in the real world. They want to come into teaching, and we're short of those skilled teachers in the CTE area. So I say keep going ongoing with your work. It is truly making a difference. I thank you. I want to also underscore that there has been some identifiable measures of progress. Test scores, graduation rate went from 72% in the last 8 years to 82%. NAEP scores up, reading, math. We have more college-ready students, and particularly African-American and Latino students have made some gains in college readiness. The AP series of courses, the AP courses and A to G series have been outstanding. And I'll just conclude. I had the pleasure of going in the last week. I was up in Alpine County. I was in Tuolumne County. I was in Los Angeles County. I was in San Francisco. And what I see when I visit the classrooms is dedicated teachers that are inspiring. They inspire me. I see kids eager to learn, exploring the world, reaching out, working together, of all races, all backgrounds, in our public schools. So a little difference between Alpine County, which has a total population of 1,200 people in the entire county, and probably about 100 students, 200 students, and Los Angeles with hundreds of thousands of students. But what I see in common is the desire to have kids succeed and realize their fullest potential. With that, I say let's continue to put a good spotlight on the work you're doing here and reassure the public that we're getting quality education, quality teaching and learning out there. Point in progress, 2016, 165 local ballot measures were put in front of the voters of California, asking the voters in each of these school districts to invest, whether it was a parcel tax or local bondage, to invest. And they did. And it was a total 95% passage rate. 95%, bringing in another $15 billion of money to invest in our schools and in our education learning programs. So I think the voters said yes to invest there, but then they also did on Prop 51. That was $9 billion for school facilities, modernization, rehab, and new construction. And Prop 55, of course, was a continuation of a measure that I helped initiate, and Linda was right there, and Molly Munger was part of our blueprint for great schools, was where do we get the money? And again, at that time, we didn't know, and we put Prop 30 together, and the voters said yes to invest. And they did it again with Prop 55. This is $7 to $8 billion a year that we desperately need. We now have the next round of Get Down to Facts. So if most of you been briefed on it or looked at sort of the summary, there was a Get Down to Facts series of studies out of Stanford about 10, 12 years ago, basically saying that California schools were off course, not providing the best support for students realizing their potential, and that we were way underfunded. And so I just wanted to let you know I'm going to continue to work on these issues. I'm aiming for a $10 billion more per year, go back to the voters in 2020. We need to do it. To Get Down to Facts, Roman numeral 2 says we've made considerable progress. Student achievement measured in various ways, not just one or two test scores, but we've made considerable progress. But they underscored that we haven't addressed early learning in preschool, 0 to 5. We need to, first 5 is doing a marvelous job, but it's not enough, and we need to actually fully fund, in my view, early learning, and that'll be a springboard for success right from the get-go. I'm also pushing for a $15 billion school bond in 2020, and so we're going to continue to work on those things and work with you. I appreciate what you're doing. A couple of areas that I think this money could be well invested in. I mentioned preschools, early learning. I want to see more in CTE, more STEM, more on world languages. I have an initiative at 2030 California, Global California, and parents are so eager to have their kids know 2 languages, and the students are so interested in doing this, and they learn other people's culture and their past, their history, their aspirations for their future by knowing another language. And so we're really pushing for 2030. We'd like to see our students, at least half, graduate proficient in 2 languages and get the seal of biliteracy. We've gone from 5,000 seals of biliteracy 5 years ago. We hit an all-time high this last year, 55,000. And our goal is to get to 200,000 and then just to keep going and have 100% proficiency as we go. I've appreciated what you've done to look into abuse cases and the real problem I have seen of failure to report by administrators and co-faculty that don't get the reporting done within the time that they should get it done. So I want to thank the Commission for your taking strong positions on those issues. Finally, partnering, teaming, getting out of the silos, the systems of support, very important. One trend that I think will accelerate, should accelerate, needs to accelerate is dual enrollment. So we're seeing so many of our high school students in their senior year, they've already done their A to G, they've done their AP courses, and they're sort of drifting along in their senior year. But here they can take community college courses at virtually no cost. They can get going. Once they've had that one community college class, they're bound to go to college and they're bound to succeed. And they can get out. I know so many students I've talked to personally who've got their graduation diploma and an AA, and some have 2 AAs. And they're done with their lower division work. They can go on to 4-year college and complete, and they can be getting their BS or BA degree in a very short order. Maybe it's only a year or a year and a half instead of 5 years. So I think that's very efficient, and the family burden of financing an extra year or 2 of college is addressed at the same time. So just wanted to share these are some of the trends I see that are positive. And again, back to saying thanks to all of you for the great work you do day in and day out. Keep it up. Thanks. Yeah.
And we thank you for all of the leadership at CDE that has caused so much positive momentum in the state. I love the multilingualism initiative that is going on, and I've been doing a lot of research on the science of learning and development and brain science, and being bilingual, actually learning symbol systems, whether it's language or music or art, actually builds a lot of neuron connections in the brain and makes people more intelligent in the long run and have greater capacity. So it's a way for us to become both more global and more respectful of range of languages and cultures, but also smarter as a state. Yeah, really. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's reject that, and what a change. So 73% of Californians voted for bilingualism and learning of another language. So the demand is enormous. I did a survey recently with 1,100 LEAs, and about 350 have said, yes, we want to establish a course in Mandarin, or we want to establish a course in you name the language. So you're right. It's a trend that's a good one.
Progress in this state. I'll just add on to your mention of getting down to facts, which is a set of 30 studies that were announced about a week or 2 ago. There's going to be additional conversation about them in legislative briefings in the coming weeks. That they did note these areas of progress for the state. They also noted that we need to continue to build the education budget for the state, that we're probably about 30% below what would be required for all students to meet the standards that we've set. So it's an ongoing need. That early learning, as Tom said, is a very big part of it, and that schools in California actually progress, students progress in California at the same rate at a greater rate in K-12 than students in other states, but that they come in to kindergarten, with less knowledge, and that preschool is really the major initiative needed to raise the state to the level of performance that many other states engage in. We at the Learning Policy Institute did studies of teacher supply and demand for getting down to facts and leadership development. And you already know the teacher supply and demand situation. We're all working hard on that, and the state is putting resources into closing those gaps. And the CTC we're going to hear this meeting about efforts to reduce barriers to entry into teaching via subject matter competency alternatives and strategies. But one really nice point in the leadership development study was that, as you know, we've changed the standards for principals and for administrators. We've infused a lot more knowledge base about whole child development, about creating a school setting that is responsive to the needs of students, that is educative and restorative, that takes social, emotional, and academic development into account, as well as content in the Common Core standards. And the newly graduated principals in recent years feel significantly better prepared in all of those areas than principals who have been in the field longer. And that is likely a result of the work we've done at this table. So I just want to reinforce the fact that a difference is being made. And I think, together our agencies are definitely making progress in a very positive direction. Let me ask if there are other commissioners who have items to report. Yes, Commissioner Barnes.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to report that the California Association of School Counselors Fall Conference is October 17th through the 19th in Riverside. And we are so excited that we can actually have a 2-day in Sacramento in February. So we're actually able to go north and south again. You can still register. There is a graduate student rate. And I also want to report that California is now the #1 state association in membership. But we're about 48th, maybe 47th now longer in ratios. We're no longer number 50, so that's exciting. We've gone from the average ratio from 1 to over 1,000 school counselors to 1 to 700, which still is a way to go. But we believe even after this year, we'll get a better ratio, because we know this year alone, Stockton Unified hires somewhere between 40 to 50 new school counselors in their district, which is amazing. And again, on the conference, there's something for everyone, K through higher ed. And just some of the highlights is Dr. Carolyn Stone will be speaking, former U.S. Senator Barbara Boxer, Dr. Jeff Duncan, and California State Assembly member Tony Thurmond. So as I said, there's still time to register. If your school counselors haven't yet, they still can. And it's a great opportunity, everything from college and career to advocacy to trauma-enforced, mental health, everything that is needed. So it's just kind of an exciting time, and I hope the trend continues that schools and districts continue to hire school counselors at all levels. I think where we're the lowest is elementary. Very, very needed. So thank you.
Sounds like a great conference. Other commissioner reports? Yes, Commissioner Grado-Shire.
Good morning. I wanted to just share that in conjunction with the California Council on Teacher Education Fall Conference, we are hosting the inaugural meeting of the California Alliance for Inclusive Schooling. This alliance is an intersegmental group of professionals dedicated to the development of inclusive schools for all students. And we think the stars are aligning in California when we think about working outside of our silos and looking at how we support multi-tiered systems of support in K-12, how we change the preparation of our teachers in higher education, and then what policy implications. So the conversation is going to be framed around those 3 big areas of policy, preparation, and practice. I'm pleased to say that the steering committee includes representatives in this room right now: Mary Sandy, Barbara Murchison, Kristen Wright, Paul Sindelar from the Cedar Center, Victoria Graff representing CAPC, myself, and then Don Cardinal. So we are meeting again on October 18th at the CCTE conference. I'll send this information so that it can be distributed to the commissioners. Thank you.
Others? Yes, Commissioner Martinez.
Yeah, I'd love to share that Execute Institute, near and dear to Linda's heart, just put out a state policy guide for how you present a comprehensive guide to understand what state policymakers can do to ensure that every high school better prepares students for the workforce. Sorry that I have to read off my own website. So pathetic. I travel a lot. It's hard to keep it all straight. But the interactive map, and so you can just like click on California and a little report card shows up about employment in California, job requirements, how many students drop out. So we've pretty much put a little dashboard on there for every state. So let me know if you guys want a print copy, but if you go to the website, you can actually read it, download it, but you can actually listen to it, and it's an audio file. So if you're in your car driving to, let's say, a CTC meeting, you can always just listen to it, but happy to share copies as well.
Version of audiobooks.
Policy guide.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, everyone. And I hope you indulge me for just a second. I'm teaching 10th graders this year, and I'm very excited about that because they're like 9th graders with an attitude. It's sort of a limbo year, and I did promise them that I would say something on the camera, and so that I would play it back to them on Monday. So hello, everyone, and I will. This is a grade where students make a lot of decisions that affect them for the rest of their lives, where it's so important for them to develop habits of mind especially, that carry them through. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited that I've been entrusted with 80 of them. And thank you, Chloe and Nevaeh, for taking care of our class fish. So thank you.
Important. Any other commissioner reports? Yes, Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo.
Yeah, I wanted to share, yesterday I participated in the mentor orientation for Butte County Office of Education's induction program. And Butte County Office of Ed, it's part of the larger Orange County Consortium. And I left this orientation just feeling so empowered, not only for what this process is going to be and bring for our beginning teachers, but also the professional growth for mentors and the micro-credential opportunities and more. So I'm excited about this 2-year journey with my colleague.
Congrats, too. Any other commissioner reports? Do any liaisons have reports? Commissioner Burns.
Just a quick report. A couple weeks ago, the PPS Credential Work Group met again to review the input from the second round of the surveys. Very valuable input. It was another very great 2 days of collaboration and actually speaking with each group. We came back together and looked at each other's for an outside view. I know all the groups are very invested and excited for the next steps and the change that it can bring. And just, they're all wanting to know when. So we would like to thank the staff, Terry, Lynette, and Karen, for all of their assistance and their patience and answering all of our questions. And sometimes I felt like we were students. We're like, what are we supposed to do? Because, you're trying to get through so much. But we're excited about the future of updating these credentials after 17 years. So looking forward to what's next.
Other liaisons? Yes, Commissioner Brown.
I have 3 things from the community colleges. The first is that the community colleges are very excited and also concerned about making the facilitating teacher prep from community colleges into the 4-year universities. The community college system has an associate degree for transfer program that guarantees entry for community college students into the CSU system at junior status in both early childhood and elementary education. However, the connections between the two need to be looked at really carefully in the general ed part, because what we're discovering is that the programs that are built for the associate degree for transfer into the CSU system aren't always in alignment with the teacher prep integrated programs. So I think that's an alert that we want to see how we can put put that together to make sure that the coursework that community college students are taking to become a teacher don't then end up being a barrier for them being part of an integrated program, even though they didn't start at that at the state university as a freshman. Both affordability and also diversity in terms of the kinds of people that we'd like to get into teaching. The second thing is the second and third thing are a little more local, and I just wanted to let you know that our college, both through our President's Innovation Fund and also the Chancellor's Strong Work Funds program, is supporting us to have a teacher internship program that gives students who are interested in education experience in elementary, special ed, and early childhood hands-on work when they first start their core work. And it's very exciting to see people get a chance to apply their early knowledge and get interested in becoming teachers right away, rather than doing all their foundational work and then finding themselves as a student teacher at the end of their journey. That's very exciting and innovative, and I wanted to let you know about it. And third, to piggyback on what you've been talking about, Tom, is that the dual enrollment program is already alive and well in 2 of our school districts. And in fact, the high school districts request which dual enrollment programs they want. And our neighbor high school wanted child development, early childhood principles, curriculum and child family community. And so that's what we're doing. And those students, those high school students, are not just your AP students. They're regular students in the high school. And one of them came up last week to interview me in looking at the state of preschool in California. So these high school kids are getting very educated, well educated early on. And so my final mention is the work that's been done with Getting Down to Facts 2, that looks at, that identifies, and you both are identifying early learning, is really alive and well in the community colleges, and we're ready to put our oar in the water for that. Thank you.
Any other liaisons with reports? All right. Oh, okay.
Autumn. Say something. I already spoke a little bit before, but I just wanted to say that this whole thing has been a really eye-opening experience for me, and I'm thankful to have been able to participate as the student liaison this past year. It was an exciting role and an honor to fill. It was nice to be able to bring back information to my cohort. It was also illuminating to see the work of the CTC and as it relates to getting a credential. Many things that seemed like strange acronyms by this like foreign governing body make a lot of sense now, and to myself and my cohort. And also the CSTPs in my induction program right now actually make a lot more sense, and I'm actually able to feel like more connected to them and understand why I'm working towards achieving those. So overall, I'm thankful to have had the opportunity to sit next to such active educators who are truly like agents of change in this field, and to participate in the discussion at times. So thank you, and congratulations to the new liaison.
Yeah, thank you.
On that note, and on behalf of our foreign governing body with its array of acronyms, I now recess the general session and move to the Educator Preparation Committee. Commissioner Gonzalez, will you please convene the committee?
There's a mat down there. Yeah. Around. Oh, okay, pass it down, yeah.
Good morning. I'd like to call the September 2018 meeting of the Educator Preparation Committee to order. We have 5 agenda items. 4 of the items are scheduled for today, with 1 more tomorrow morning. The first item today is the annual report card on California teacher preparation programs for the academic year 2016-2017, as required by Title II of the Higher Education Act. This item is being presented by Marjorie Sukow and Fifi Lau. This is an action item. Ms. Sukow, will you begin, please? Morning.
Commission Agenda Item 3A is the annual report card on California teacher preparation programs for the academic year 16-17 as required by Title II of the Higher Education Act. Before I start the presentation, I would like to mention this presentation is available on our website. You can see the link right below the action item. So if you want to follow the presentation on your laptop, you can click the link. Before we get into the findings from the 16-17 report, I thought I'll give some background information. What is Title II? Why do we have to do Title II? When do we submit the information to the U.S. Department of Education? What type of data elements are collected at the institutional level as well as at the state level? This state report is mandated by federal law. This original Higher Education Act was signed in 1965. It has been reauthorized 9 times. When it was reauthorized in 1998, Title II was added as a requirement for teacher preparation programs. In 2008, it was reauthorized, and the reauthorization added substantial changes both to the teacher preparation programs as well as to the state. It is a huge law, more than 400 pages long. Sections 205 through 208 call for accountability for programs that prepare teachers. So every single data element collected and reported, they come from the law. And throughout the agenda item, they are described or presented in the form of italics, so you will know which section and what data element are collected. And since it's a federal requirement, we have to follow the federal definition, and sometimes they may be slightly different from the state definitions. When do we submit this report? For each Title II data collection and reporting, we develop 3 different types of reports. First is the institution report. Institutions who prepare teachers, they submit the reports to the commission. Then we take all the reports from the institutions and present a consolidated state report to the U.S. Department of Education. And the Department of Education takes the report from all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and territories, and they produce a national report. It's also called the Secretary's Report. Traditionally, institutions submit the information to the commission in April. April 30th is the deadline. And we submit the information to the U.S. Department of Education in October. October 31st is our deadline. And the Secretary's report is published the following April. So we follow the April-October schedule. This is the 18th report that we will be submitting to the U.S. Department of Education in October. U.S. Department of Education released its 10th report a couple of years ago. How do we submit the report? This Westat is our Title II federal contractor. They develop a web-based paperless system called the Institutional and Program Report Card. So each institution has its own login. They come into the website and they submit this report. All 50 states, Washington, D.C., and territories, we all use this web-based data tool. Similarly, for the state report card, it's also a paperless web-based system. And we, all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and territories submit the information to the feds via this data tool. What is in the Title II report? This Title II requirement is for programs who prepare teachers. In California, we have 3 different types of teaching credential: multiple subject, single subject, and education specialist. This report does not include data on designated subjects or services credentials. We report only on the first or the initial credentials only. We do not have to report on the added authorization or subsequent authorization. Since every year we submit this report, added authorization will be like a duplicate count, so we don't want to do that. What are the requirements of teacher preparation programs? After the 2008 reauthorization, substantial changes were made. One of the big change was institutions who have both traditional route and university route, the intern route, they have to submit 2 separate reports. They're identical, but they have to submit 2 different reports. So we have 3 different routes. Traditional is the student teaching route. Alternative route, IHE-based, are our university intern programs. Alternative route, not IHE-based, are our district intern programs. What data elements are reported? We collect and report both quantitative and qualitative information.
There are several sections, both collected at the institution level and some at the state level. Program information is the biggest quantitative section in the report. I counted there are more than 55 data elements collected, starting from admission requirements. Do we need ACT score, SAT score, what type of GPA requirements, is there fingerprint clearance required, background check, recommendations. So there are 15 data elements, they are listed on page 4. Then we move on to enrollment by gender, race, ethnicity, number of hours spent on required for clinical experience, teachers prepared by subject area and by their undergraduate academic major, and number of program completers for the past 3 years. Then the institutions have to submit some qualitative information, some assurances. How do they prepare the general ed teachers, special ed teachers? Do they use technology in the teacher preparation programs? So they submit all this information. They've already submitted this in April. All this information is already loaded into the state report. Then in addition to that, state must submit information on credential requirements, what are our specific requirements as a state, and standards and criteria we use to assess the performance of teacher preparation programs, and criteria we use to classify a low-performing institution or at risk of low-performing institution. And finally, statewide improvement efforts to improve teaching quality. So we have a lot. This is a pretty substantial, long, lengthy report. Assessment is a big, heavy focus in this Title II report. Before the reauthorization, pretty much primarily it was pass rate data. After the reauthorization, they have added some qualitative information as well. And the other difference was before we have to provide information for program completers only. After the reauthorization, in addition to program completers, we have to submit information for enrolled candidates as well. So groups 1 and 2, they are enrolled candidates in the program. Group 3 is our program completers for the 16-17 year. Groups 4 and 5, they are program completers from prior year. Since institutions have already submitted the information to the state as well as to the exam contractor, they do not have to submit this every year. We update the pass rate and produce the pass rate data. Another major requirement of the Title II is Title II data are public. So we have a dedicated website for Title II on our Commission's website. We have published all the background information, the current schedule, when information is reported to the feds. And also, we have 17 years worth of data available on our website. In prior years, we produced the reports in PDF, so they are all available. In addition to the PDF reports, for the past 3 years, we have been reporting the data in the form of data dashboards. So anybody can slice and dice the Title II data. They're transparent and they're readily available. If they want to do any researcher want to do further analysis, data are available in the form of Excel. At the bottom of each data dashboard, they're available so they can simply download and do their own analysis. Institutional level data are available at our website and as well as on the federal website. Now moving on to the more interesting part of the presentation is the selected highlights from 16-17. We have 93 institutions who prepared initial teacher preparation programs. They submitted data to us, and it's a total of 146 reports. So this summary is a consolidation of 146 reports. We had approximately 24,000 candidates enrolled in 16-17 year, and more than 12,000 program completers for 16-17. And another highlight is when we look at the enrollment by race and ethnicity, 5 years ago, 57%, this is voluntary self-reported information, they identify themselves as white, so 43 non-white. In 16-17, we have 52% identify themselves as non-white.
So now we're going to take a look at the data findings through charts and graphs. So I hope everyone will be excited as I am. Okay, it looks a little bit better, I think, probably on your laptop. So here we have 2 donut charts with information about institutions and programs reported for 2016-17 year. As previously mentioned, in 2016-17, there were 93 commission-approved institutions that submitted a Title II report, as shown on this left donut chart. Of the 93 institutions, there were 23 CSUs, 8 UCs, 49 private independent institutions, and 13 LEAs that offer an initial teacher preparation program in 2016-17. On the right donut chart, there were 146 programs reported by the 93 commission-approved institutions. These 146 programs include institutions that offer a traditional program only, an alternative program only, which is the district intern program, and institutions that offer both a traditional and alternative, specifically the university intern program. The data showed that there were 80 traditional programs, 53 alternative IHE-based or university intern programs, and 13 alternative not IHE-based or district intern programs. Overall, the data show that in 2016-17, there were more private independent institutions that offer an initial teacher preparation program, and that most candidates were enrolled in a traditional program. So now that we know the distribution of institutions and programs, let's take a look at the distribution by candidates. So what is the candidate enrollment by gender? On the left pie chart, we can see that nearly 3/4 of candidates were female. On the right bar graph, about 72% of females were enrolled in the traditional program. However, there was a higher percentage of male candidates enrolled in the alternative programs than in the traditional program. Overall, the data show that in 2016-17, enrolled candidates consist mainly of females, but the enrollment of male has increased, especially in the alternative programs. What is the candidate enrollment by race and ethnicity? We have 2 bar graphs, so we're going to start with the left, where the data show that 48% of candidates were reported as white. So that means that more than half of candidates were non-white. On the right bar graph, the data show enrollment by program route. Based on the percentage of white candidates, we can see that for traditional and alternative programs, there were more non-white candidates than those in the alternative IHE-based program. Overall, the data show us that teaching programs are preparing more non-white teachers, signifying a more diversified teaching workforce in the future. When looking at the candidate enrollment for the last 3 years, was there an increase or decrease in 2016-17? On the left bar graph, we can see that there was an increase of enrollment in the last 3 years, with an 11.5 increase from 2015-16. If we look at the data by total, the data show that there were more than 23,000 enrolled candidates in 2016-17. On the right line graph, where we can see enrollment by program routes, the data showed that there was a slight dip of enrollment in 2015-16 for candidates in the traditional program, but a steady increase in the alternative programs. Overall, there was an increase of candidate enrollment in 2016-17 and across all program routes. Let's take a look at the clinical experience data. What is the distribution of programs by number of supervised clock hours required for clinical experience? The bar graph shows that 46% of traditional and alternative programs reported that they required a minimum of 600 clock hours of supervisions, which you can see from the bars below. So in other words, 52 of the 112 programs that submitted a data for supervised clinical experience required the minimum 600 hours. It is important to note that the federal definition of supervised clinical experience is described as a series of supervised field experiences, including student teaching with PK-12 students that occur as a sequence, integral part of the preparation program prior to the candidate becoming the teacher of record. So this 2016-17 Title II data were submitted prior to the approval of the Commission's required 600 hours of clinical experience. The Commission has started to collect data on clinical experiences in the new accreditation data system. We hope that the data will provide a more accurate distribution of supervised clock hours reported for all program pathways. This data showed the reported supervised clock hours in 2016-17 by the federal definition. Let's look at the program completers next. Was there an increase or decrease of program completers in the last 3 years? So we look at the bar graph on the left. There was an increase of program completers in the last 3 years with a 7.5% increase from 2015-16. When looking at the total, there were about 12,000 program completers in 2016-17. And if you recall from the candidate enrollment data, this shows a similar trend of a steady increase in the subsequent years. Looking at the line graph on the right, the increase is also consistent across all program routes. So overall, there was an increase of program completers in 2016-17 and across all program routes. Oh, this doesn't look really nice on the screen, so hopefully everybody's looking at on their laptop. Let's take a look at the in-depth look at the program completers or teachers' undergraduate academic majors for 2016-17. It is important to note that programs were provided a federal list of academic majors to select for their teachers. For a broader look of the academic majors, the Commission compiles similar majors into broader groupings. On the left bar graph, the top undergraduate major across all program route was social sciences. Social sciences include majors such as government, psychology, sociology, and of course social sciences. The top 3 majors for teachers in the traditional program were social sciences, liberal arts, and English. And for the alternative IHE-based or the university intern teachers, the top 3 academic majors were social sciences, liberal arts, and math and science. And then for the alternative non-IHE-based or district intern programs, the top 3 academic majors were social sciences, other, and math and science. On the right bar graph, we combine the majors into 3 categories. The specific subject, which includes single subject majors such as social sciences, English, art, math, and science. Then we have liberal arts and other. The data showed that teachers' undergraduate majors did not vary much across program routes. When we look at the data by total, we can see that most of the teachers in the traditional and alternative programs did have a major in the specific subjects. Overall, the data showed that most of the teachers' undergraduate academic major was in the single subject area and not in liberal arts. So this indicates that teachers may not have planned to teach during their undergraduate years. Even though most of the teachers did not have an undergraduate academic major in liberal arts, let's find out what subject area they were prepared in. On the left bar graph, elementary education was the top subject area in the traditional and alternative or university intern program. And special education was the top subject area prepared by alternative non-IHE-based or district intern program. On the right bar graph, most teachers in the traditional program were prepared in the elementary and secondary subjects. However, more than half of teachers in the alternative programs combined were prepared in special education. Overall, the data show us that in 2016-17, most teachers were prepared in elementary education, and there were more alternative or intern teachers in the special education program than in elementary and secondary. Lastly, let's take a look at the candidates' examination data. Here we have data on the RECA, the statewide summary for all 2016-17 program completers in the traditional program. Let's start from the bottom where the data show us that for the current RECA written exam, there was 93% pass rate. It is important to note that RECA is a credential requirement for multiple subject and education specialist candidates. Therefore, candidates may complete the program without passing the RECA. However, the credential cannot be issued without passing the RICA. Moving up, we can see that there was a 100% pass rate for completers who took the RICA video. And when we look at RICA 81, this written test was offered prior to the revision of the 2009 RICA standards. It is possible for candidates who had previously taken the old RICA test to now complete the preparation program. So you'll notice that there were 4 test takers for the old RICA test. The pass rate will not be reported if there were less than 10 test takers. Overall, there was a over 93% RICA pass rate for program completers in the traditional program. And then with that, I will turn it back to Margie to wrap up this presentation.
To summarize, Title II is a federal mandate. All teacher preparation programs already submitted the data to us in April. So now we are consolidating the state report, which will be submitted to the U.S. Department of Education in October. Some highlights: there are a lot of good things in the report. More than half of our candidates were enrolled in the traditional program. More male candidates in the alternative programs. More than half, 52% of our teacher candidates are non-white. There was a steady increase in the enrollment for the past 5 years. Between 15-16 and 16-17, there was an increase of 11.5%. Similarly, steady increase in the number of program completers. Between 15-16 and 16-17, an increase of 7.5%. More than half the teachers in the alternative programs were prepared in special education. This item is an action item. Staff recommends that the Commission approve this report so we can reformat this report and submit this report via web-based data system before October 31st. And we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I will now open the public comment section of this item. I'd like to invite Rigel Massaro. You can please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Good morning, Rigel Massaro with Public Advocates. Thank you very much, staff, for this report. I guess I wanted to start a really good intro here. Just going to jump in. So in terms of enrollment, I was definitely pleased to see this change over the past 10 years. It seemed particularly strong in our Latinx candidates, with a 7% change over the past 10 years. And that's really meaningful and positive. And for our teacher population to reflect our student population, that would take 35 years at that rate, assuming that our state demographics don't change, which they will. So all this to say, we can't rest on our laurels. We have to pursue policy that recruits and retains candidates of color. African American candidates, it went from 6% to 7% to 5%, now to 4.8%. Those aren't huge changes, but the trend is not encouraging. So I just want us to really think about these particular populations as the populations that I think we want to recruit, retain, and ensure that we have in our schools reflecting our students. On the enrollment piece, I want us to keep going back a little farther than 5 years. We are increasing, and that's wonderful. And this is the biggest increase since we hit our low in the 2013-14 school year. And just to keep our reference point, if we go back just 2 more years, we had almost 35,000 enrolled instead of the 19 or so now. So we are still, or no, maybe it's more. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me. We still have a long way to go. And so I really hope with the considerable investments we've seen this year in the budget, we're able to see programs' goals and their actual numbers increasing meaningfully to meet the need we clearly have. I asked last year, and and forgive me if I should be able to get this in a different dashboard, but I'm wondering if you can help me understand the difference in the enrolled candidates versus the completers. We have CSU, with a much higher percentage completing than initially enrolling, and vice versa for the private institutions. So in my mind, that's like students are transferring, but I know that there are issues with the federal data, and so if there could be something to help explain that either here or in the report, ideally, that would be good. It's a strange shift to me. And I do hope the new standard requiring 600 hours of clinical practice changes the data that we're seeing in terms of the variation in clinical practice for both traditional and alternative programs. So again, and the increases that we are seeing overall, I don't think are the kind of growth we want to be seeing, right? So we see that there have been a 2% increase in traditional routes over the past 3 years. But if you go back to when we were actually had a supply that was meeting our demand, we see from 7 years ago till now a 17% decrease in traditional routes. So we are incrementally going up, but the where we were to where we are now is still very stark. And we see the alternative route, there's an increase of 71% over the past 3 years, which is really high. And if you go back in that 7-year mark, it's at 97%. So it's near 100% increase. So we are relying on underprepared teachers to address our shortage areas. And this shortage is a shortage disproportionately impacting our students of color, low-income students, English learners, students with disabilities. This is corroborated by the report, which states that only 60% of traditional programs are able to meet their goals in enrolling special education teacher candidates. And the slack is being picked up by our alternative programs. And I don't mean to say alternative programs are bad. To me, that increase and the over-reliance is very problematic when we know who this shortage is hitting. We have also heard of anecdotal evidence where certain programs are not spending the time you'd expect they would, particularly on the diversity and complexity of needs around students with disabilities. And I would request that CTC look at this issue. We know how many of our special education teacher candidates are now coming through the alternative route. Is that route the best it can be to ensure those people are prepared and supported to meet the needs of their students? Finally, I would again ask why the Commission isn't reporting to the federal government. I'm reading on page 3A-19 on the emergency temporary and provisional certificate, license or other, and maybe it's the kind of hinging on the word credential, but we have STIPs and PIPs and TIPSLs and other things that to my read should go in that description of it's part of the shortage piece that reporting is required on. We could put it in that section as well. It's an incredibly important issue, and to not mention it in this document seems problematic from my perspective. Thank you.
Dr. Sukow?
If I may, the comparison of number of enrolled candidates versus program completers, we put a caveat. According to the federal definition, if a candidate started the program at the beginning of the reporting year, and then they finish all their requirements by the end of the reporting year, they are considered as program completers. So we cannot count them as enrolled. So that is the reason. And this, again, some programs are more than 12 months. So here we are giving a snapshot. So that's what maybe the numbers look different when we look at them by segment. And the PIPs and STIPs, they're detailedly described in the teacher supply report, and in the federal report we do list them, different types of permits issued by the Commission to address teacher shortage.
Thank you for the clarification. Lynn Scott, if you can please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. Superintendent Torlikson. My name is Lynn Scott. I'm a faculty member at Cal State East Bay. Today I'm here for CABTE, the California Association for Bilingual Teacher Education. It's an affiliate of CABE, the California Association of Bilingual Education. I realize that this is a federal report that we're required to complete. As some of the comments came earlier, we know that in California we need to go above and beyond this and make this accessible. It does give us a chance to reflect on what's contained. And one of the things that stands out to me most prominently is that while we're moving in the right direction, our teachers do not reflect the diversity of the children in their classrooms. And I want to really encourage you to reflect on what we can do to affirmatively move forward so that we do have a more diverse teaching workforce. For example, in bilingual teacher education, we know that there are a number of barriers. And rather than hand-wringing, we're trying to point out what these barriers are to recruiting and retaining more bilingual teachers in the field. We know, for example, from as instructors at IHEs, we realize that many teacher candidates would prefer just to teach in English, even though they may come from a heritage language or a home language that is needed. After 20 years of the UNS initiative, they don't feel that they have the biliteracy competencies. So what that really means is not imploring people to come into the field, but really working affirmatively to provide them the resources to get over those barriers. One thing that our organization has identified is EdTPA. While we have CalTPA and we're doing a lot of things to serve the needs of teacher candidates who grew up with a home language other than English, EdTPA, we have design standards by the state, and so Pearson in their development of EdTPA has to follow those design standards, but we are not requiring them to collect data on the language background of the candidates. So we really want to push the CTC to have more background data on the candidates, specifically the language background of the candidates. It's great to hear Chairman Darling-Hammond mentioned the brain science behind multilingualism. We know about the successful repeal of the UNS initiative with Prop 58 at the 70% level, and great to see Superintendent Torlikson's 2030 initiative. It's giving the field a lot of renewed emphasis. We need to go beyond kind of preaching to the choir and figure out how to roll up our sleeves and take away these burdens and these barriers that candidates are facing. So while we don't want to lower the quality of bilingual teachers in the state, we realize that in order to recruit the amount of bilingual teachers and retain them that we need to serve the English-speaking families who want bilingual teachers, we're going to have to take more affirmative actions than what we're currently doing. So I will second the thought that we can't rest on our laurels, but continue to encourage the discussion of what are all of these small steps we can take to really recruit and retain bilingual teachers.
Thank you. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Sloan?
Thank you for the comprehensive presentation and report. It's always so interesting to read these. And Marjorie, what you said in the very beginning, one of the things that is sometimes difficult is the federal definitions of things are different from our definition of things. So I just have some questions and a couple of comments on interpreting some of the data. So one of the questions that I have has to do with, let me put this down here, the table on 3A5, the GPA, the grad, let me see, sorry, I'm getting up there. So the minimum required GPA that's reported here, is this a median? What is this?
Here this is another one of the federal definition which doesn't work very well because GPA itself is an average. So here we had to take an average of average across 3 different teaching credentials. But this is what the institutions report, so we are trying to show some range among the 93 institutions. So the questions are exactly the wording from the federal report, and these are the averages.
Okay, so that was my question. So when it says minimum GPA required for admission into the program, this is the average across all of the routes. So I think that is important because to emphasize in here, because when I first saw it, I know that our institution requires a different GPA, and I wondered why it was different. The other thing my next question had to do with the definition of student teaching. And I know that you had mentioned that in the beginning. So my understanding that the definition of student teaching is supervised field experiences prior to the candidate becoming the teacher of record. Is that right? So then one of the things that I wonder about is when I'm looking at the clock hours for student teaching and alternative programs, and 600 clock hours prior to being the teacher of record seems like a lot. And I'm wondering how programs do that or what this figure means.
This is one of the challenging sections. We are working with the feds.
Mm-hmm.
They are in the process of revising this entire report, and California is part of the focus group. And we have been actually literally talking to them tomorrow because some of the questions are not relevant or not applicable for the alternative route. They're asking the exact same questions and definitions. So that's another reason the information is not coming out that in a consistent manner or accurate manner. It's getting better, but still it is not clear coming through this federal definition.
Mm-hmm.
And also we're hoping through the ADS we'll be able to get more accurate picture. Right now, we know there is a kind of a problem area. It's a challenging area.
Yeah, I know our other experts going to clarify.
I think Marjorie's trying to be very tactful. I think there was operator error. I believe that intern programs have inappropriately put the number of hours. Those are not hours before they become teacher of record. I think that there are a number of intern programs who are misunderstanding the prompt and are including their hours that the candidate is an intern in that total.
That's very helpful, thank you, because that I think is extremely important in understanding the differences between
Can
these.
I add one more? Because these reports, institutions submit directly to the feds. The deans and provosts, they certify the reports saying they're accurate. So we cannot change what they're submitting to the feds.
Yeah.
But we do review, we do follow up. So that's what is getting better. But still, I think for the feds, our recommendation from California, separate out the questions for traditional route versus alternative route. Why it has to be the same. So they are looking into it.
Okay, so I do think that's really, I'm glad we're looking into that. It's incredibly important when this becomes public. Yes.
I would say that I think staff, we could try to make a better effort to reach out to the intern programs and help clarify this information. The challenge is a lot of institutions don't necessarily value the Title II report, I think, because it doesn't really give a lot of information. And so some of the information that's in there rolls over from year to year to year, and they may not even check it very thoroughly before it goes through the process and they verify it. But we have an intern consultant who works with all the intern programs, and we can definitely get a message out to the programs to really think about this question. What it's actually asking you for is the hours where your students are supervised in fieldwork before they become the teacher of record. Mm-hmm. So we will do that before they have to submit this next April.
Great. I think that's important. And then my second, I wanted to clarify, the other figure in the table was called the mentoring/induction support. And when I first looked at this without looking at the definition, I was wondering why we've got traditional programs with 45 hours and alternative with 144. And then when I looked at the definition, I realized it is only mentoring induction support for candidates once they are the teacher of record. So it might be helpful if in the report you could emphasize this, because otherwise it looks like traditional programs are not mentoring their candidates very often. That would be helpful. I think for the moment those were my sort of primary questions and issues. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Chair Darling Hammond.
Thanks so much for all the good work that went into this report. and for arm wrestling the definitions, both within and beyond the state. I know it's complicated work. I just wanted to add some data to the point that came up earlier. This is reporting on people who are in programs. We had about 12,000 credentials and permits issued last year that were not for teachers who had completed their full preparation at that point. About half of them, 6,000, were for people who were on PIPs or STIPs or waivers. And so they're not included in this report. So about half of that, and that 12,000 was about half of the credentials that we issued. So there's a significant share, about a quarter of the pieces, the documents that we issued that went to people who were not in any program, had not met the standards for subject matter competency and or teaching competency. And that's the single biggest challenge with the shortages. We have been trying at this table to strengthen expectations for intern programs and alternative routes by ensuring that people get some training for teaching English learners before they enter the classroom, by adding features of the supervision and mentoring that need to be in place for those interns to actually be carefully mentored and supervised. But there are these concerns that Rigel Massaro raised and others that these are folks who maybe in many cases have not had student teaching. So they may or may not, in many cases, they've not had the benefit of seeing another teacher teach and being able to really model. We are trying to strengthen the opportunities they have for both being coached and for seeing that modeling. But all of this is, of course, part of, the many efforts people are making to try to meet the demand, which has been increasing faster than the supply. In 2002, there were there's been a 70% drop in the number of people enrolled in teacher education since 2002. So the little increases that we're seeing are very tiny in relation to the size of the decrease. So we have quite a long way to go to build back up to where the demand is asking us to be. I'm really glad that we raised the issue of diversity in the teaching force. It is interesting that in California, we have more than half of the teachers coming in are teachers of color. In other states and in national conversations, there's always this concern. In many states it's 15% or 20%, and people are really worried about how to increase that share. We've been at half or above for a few years now. It might be interesting for us to figure out how and why that's happening, and also we need to look at the question of retention, because nationally recruitment of teachers of color is in much better shape than retention of teachers of color, both because they tend to teach in the highest need schools where working conditions can be most challenging, and because more come in typically through alternative pathways which have higher attrition rates. So these are all questions that we should take a look at. I know there's a desire and a process to get data sets from CTC and CDE connected so that we can explore some of these questions and be able to really look at what's happening with those. We do know, and I was glad to see Rigel's eagle eye on the question of African American teacher participation, that issues typically have to do with money for training, and teacher residencies may help. People can come into programs and get full training and have relief from some tuition costs and some support for living stipends. Service scholarships and forgivable loans are another successful way in many states to get more people in who will be able to afford to be fully prepared before they get there. We don't have that for teachers at the moment. We did in the past. Testing is another issue that causes exclusion from the teaching force that we'll be taking up some issues on in this meeting. So this is a hugely informative report, and there's a lot for us to dig in on, not just today as we approve the report, but also as we think about the policy framework going forward.
Superintendent Torlakson?
Great report, and wanted to make a few comments about the bilingual need and bilingual educator need, following the comments of the Cal State University, Cal State East Bay professor. First priority, we've been looking at this carefully in the department. First priority is to grow our own and recruit and find candidates even back to high school like we have in San Bernardino City District. There's some grow your own teacher programs that take the ethnicities blend of the community and help them through a high school course of study to get into teaching and then articulate fairly well with community college or Cal State San Bernardino. So that is a big priority. We're also looking and wanted to invite this commission and Mary to work with a internal working group we have in the department, looking at opportunities to have more teachers, say from China, come in and dual immersion teach Mandarin. And so we've had some outreach and connection to education agencies in Qingdao, China, and there's potentially a cohort of 25 a year that could come and fill the demand that we see in California. So I just wanted to mention, but we are running into some issues, visa issues. We want to make sure that they're capable, proficient in English and meet our California credential standards. And they have to have some teaching experience. They have to have gone through a teacher education program in China and pass the test with proficiency in English. But we're wanting to make sure we have strong connections and make that opportunity available. Apparently there's a large number of Chinese teachers who would like to come here to California and teach for 1, 2, 3 years and so forth. We're also working with Mexico, the Secretario de Educación de Baja, and also Mexico as a whole, and trying to increase the number of bilingual teachers we have in Spanish as well. But it's not simple and difficult work, but I'm glad the report focused on that, and we've urged attention to the comments from the Cal State East Bay professor, and look forward to working, Mary, perhaps with you and Linda and your committee to explore how we could pull this program, an exchange program, off the ground. We're right now exploring like an MOU with the agencies in China that would supply the candidates who are eager to come here.
Thank you, Superintendent Torlakson. I'd also like to add that the Department of Education did a wonderful job submitting a report earlier this summer that talked about our current state of dual immersion schools and programs in our state. I believe it was about 417 in 2017. The ambitious goal of getting to 800 by 2020 and doubling that to 1,600 by 2030. So the demand is right before us.
Right.
So thank you. Any other comments, commissioners, or questions? Commissioner Slump?
Just one more comment. I think very much appreciate this conversation. And also, I wanted to just point out one more thing under Figure 1 under 3A5, and that was the exit GPA. Sometimes our field, as you can see, the exit GPA is quite high. Our field gets criticized for that as being somehow indicative of a lack of rigor. But just the opposite, I think, is true and needs to be mentioned, is that in California, most of these programs that are being reported here are postgraduate programs. These are programs where you're being prepared to teach, and when you leave, you have to be able to teach. The traditional program definition in the Title II report primarily refers to undergraduate programs. So you can see over a 4-year period of time, you're going to have different kinds of grades and et cetera. But once you're in our post-baccalaureate programs learning to teach, you have to be able to master what you do. There's no D's and F's, and then you can go and be a teacher. So that is the thing. I was looking at one of my colleagues' a syllabus recently, and she said, your grade in here is either an A or not there yet. And if you're not there yet, there are a number of supports and things to try to get you there. And if you don't get there, you don't complete. So I just wanted to clarify, and I think that is the way we feel in the field, and we want to make sure that that is highlighted in these figures.
Thank you. Commissioners, this is an action item. Do I have a motion to approve the 2016 annual report card of California Teacher Preparation Program so staff may transmit the reformatted web-based version of the report to the U.S. Department of Education on or before October 31st, 2018. Commissioner Martinez, who have a motion, and Commissioner Marks, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carry. Thank you, Dr. Sukow and Ms. Lau, and greatly appreciate the active link to your presentation. That was fantastic. Let's take a 7-minute break, and if you can come back at 5 till, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.